Hi, I'm David with EV World News. We're talking about electric vehicles, green energy, and the stock markets. And I'm back in the studio today with our founder and chief editor, Bill Moore. How's it going today, Bill?
I am slowly recovering from some kind of a sinus infection. So, I might have to resort to my tissues.
Jeez, I really hope you don't get the coughing thing that I had, because that
No,
just
well, I hope
quite
not too. I've
miserable.
had those in the past and they drug on for months.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
some of that was just a little crazy. I was just telling Bill before we went live. I've gone on some trips recently for tennis tournaments, and some of my friends, because I do this show, they'll be asking me questions, and I can just tell that for the most part, most of them, now some of them drive electric cars. The ones that drive electric cars don't have the questions, but the other ones, they have these questions. You can just tell that they have no idea, or they'll give me their experience with an electric lawnmower, or something, and wonder how comparable that is. And I will say this: I use an electric lawnmower, and I can do. They're really great, actually, even cutting tall grass. But when the battery's dead, I still got about a third of a yard to do, and so I have to go plug it back in and come back later, which
Yep.
isn't necessarily the end of the world, because I could
No.
go and edge or something else, use the weed eater, but it's still not charged back up by the time I'm done with that. So
Well, the option for that is that you can have a spare battery.
right,
You
no, I
charge
get
and
that.
just pop it in, or do what I do, which is simply I mow the back out here, right,
Hmm.
one day and trim it and so on, and then the next day I mow the front and the two side yards
Yeah, I'm
with
just,
another
but
full. So it's not a problem. You just work your way around it.
yeah, I get the usual, questions. Don't the cars wear out fast? Why do they depreciate so much? And
Well,
you know,
that's a legitimate question. We should talk about that.
well, I mean, I think depreciation is a little bit of a couple of factors. One, I think the tax incentives are a big part of the depreciation. So what's happening is you buy a $50,000 car, you get a $7,500 tax incentive. You really bought a $42,500 car, but the depreciation is factored off the 50,000. So all of a sudden, when you
Okay.
have
Well, yeah.
15%, that 7,500 is 15% of 50,000. You have an immediate 15% depreciation because of the tax deduction or the tax credit.
Right.
So I think that makes it a little worse. But but that's in the United States, right? So like the Porsche Taycan, the really high end version is like 150 grand. Okay, whether you buy it in Europe or the US or wherever. And there's all these cases of where people are upset because in trade-in people want to offer them like $40,000.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's a problem. But the Porsche didn't even quite have a 200-mile range, and so here they made a $150,000 car with, well, right at a 200-mile
Can't
range.
can't compete with a $10,000 Chinese car.
Yeah, yeah. It's just, some of it was a little absurd, but a lot of it also is people had to be the first to have that technology,
Right.
like
Yeah.
the Cybertruck Founders Edition. I'm sure that those people are taking a bath. It's just like the original people who bought the Model S Plaid. It was super expensive, and now they
Hmm.
can be bought for about 90 grand, and they were like 130, 140 when they came out initially, but the price has dropped massively. And a lot of that, but there's a couple of reasons for that. One is battery technology keeps getting cheaper, and as battery technology keeps getting cheaper, and it's because they're becoming more and more efficient at making the vehicles. Plus, Tesla probably had a pretty massive profit margin on those first
Yeah,
ones.
yeah. Hey, they had a lot of room to play with. The other factor too, which is interesting, I posted this here the first thing this morning, is that the color of your Tesla also determines the rate of depreciation. You know which one depreciates the most? What color?
Well, black is the most common, so probably black.
Black is the black, followed by silver and blue.
Okay.
The least depreciated ones is white.
Yep. But you pay extra for those other colors other than black. So
Right.
black, yeah, they charge like $1,500 for different colors. or something like that. It's not. I mean, it's a good chunk, but I mean, all the car dealers. I mean, if you go to Chevy, they have different versions. They have several basic colors, and then they have a whole bunch that are another $700 or $1,500
Right.
more expensive for that particular paint color.
Yeah, in the case of the Ford F-150, the color is red is the one that depreciates the most.
Huh. I wonder what's the cause of that on depreciating. There's too many of them.
No idea.
Because when you're looking up the value of the vehicle, you know, on one of the used car guides, it certainly doesn't ask you the color of your vehicle.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a funny one to actually hear. All right, let's start about talking about the electric bus you thought was dead but isn't. There's apparently a resurgence of electric trolley buses.
Uh-huh.
And that's
but the difference is that back, you know, in the 20s and 30s when these things were running around, you know, I mean, I've been on an electric trolley bus going down the Embarcadero in San Francisco. I mean, it's a, you know, wonderful nostalgic experience, but they had to always be connected to the wires, which meant you had to have this extensive system of overhead catenary and, you know, cables and towers and all this kind of stuff to support them. The difference now is that the new buses are EVs, so that they can don't need, there's only certain parts of the route where they need to be on it, and then they get on there and the catenary connects and the batteries get recharged. But other than that, they don't have to be always connected to the overhead cable system to be able to operate and provide service. And that's the big difference here, is that you're able to reduce the maintenance cost of your vehicles because you don't have to have all that overhead cabling that you've traditionally had to have.
So you'd only have it on certain routes.
You only have it on certain routes and on certain lengths of the route, you know, ones that are going to be obviously most frequently used and so on. But then that bus, you know, like these two buses here, one bus could maybe, they're both being connected, but one can take a turn to the right and there's no cable system, and it can go for, you know, whatever the range is, that's 5-10 miles, whatever it might be, until it comes back around to this particular stretch and recharges. And the other bus can take a left turn and do the same thing. So you're not always having to be connected to that overhead system. That's the beauty of
it. I'm wondering how well that charges. So it says the buses can travel 10 to 20 kilometers off wire.
Yep.
So that's not really a very long route. It makes me wonder how big those batteries are. So we're not talking the 300 kilowatt hour batteries.
There again, that's a money saver because you don't need as much battery. I'm sure there's, you know, some engineering fine tuning that needs to be done depending on terrain and weather and all those kinds of things. But you don't need a bus that is all electric. I mean, it's all electric in the sense, but it doesn't have to have huge battery pack, which is expensive and drives it up and so on. So I think it's a beautiful compromise.
So these trolley buses, there's several cities, Vancouver, Mexico City, Zurich, and Salzburg are all investing in this IMC equipped trolley buses.
Right.
Vancouver has ordered 100 units with options for hundreds more.
Yep.
And European cities are upgrading fleets to meet climate targets without overhauling entire transit systems. Be interesting because the article didn't give us any economics, you know, and also it certainly isn't as heavy than Owen.
Right.
But it's I'm going to assume these are much closer in price to a diesel bus, because that's one of the things electric buses have tended to be almost double what diesel buses have been.
Well, they're you know, I guess we'd have to. I did not put this through the AI.
That's all right. We don't necessarily
development
need the
cycle.
economics.
I mean, those, yeah. But anyway, obviously there's some economics that's playing out here that looks apparently favorable to whoever the city comptroller was or is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm just saying it.
And what I'm wondering, of course, we have this big debate here going on in Omaha about our trolley, and I'm wondering if this may if anybody had considered this, because you don't have to lay, fixed permanent, rail systems and things like that. You don't have to have a continuous, cable system over the top of it. Would it not have made, maybe more sense to have investigated this as a possibility?
I mean, I'm sure the Omaha trolley system is going to be powered by corn. I really don't know.
Well, I don't know. I mean, given the problems in the ag market where China is not buying our soybeans and the harvest is starting here pretty quickly, we may have to, be burning some of those soybeans or something. And, that's an entirely different debate and problem, particularly for those of us in the Midwest whose economies are so heavily based on agriculture and soybeans.
Right. Yeah. So here's kind of an interesting article, and this one came from Motley Fool, which is generally just talking about stocks,
right?
But it's talking about the CEO of Lucid and his comments on why they're not making electric trucks. And he's saying that producing an EV pickup that's usable and cost effective is a massive challenge. And you look at this, if you want a EV truck that tows, you pretty much have to go with either the Chevy or the GM. Okay. And they're $100,000.
Yeah.
That's not, they got a 200 plus kilowatt hour battery. The Ford F-150 can tow for about 80 miles on a full charge. The Cybertruck's pretty similar. And so you're kind of left looking at what Chevy has. And like I said, those aren't cheap. And pickup trucks aren't cheap to start with, but
no.
when you're pushing the envelope even farther there, right?
Yeah.
Tesla's Cybertruck has failed to come anywhere near the company's forecast of sales between 250,000 and 500,000 annually.
Yeah.
That was certainly, something they were hoping to be big, and that just, never happened. But, one of the things too, we talk about this on the show a lot, is that one of the reasons Tesla had a lot of timing on their side as far as their success. When they went to real mass market with vehicles, interest rates were at historic lows. And so it really made it possible when people were able, even though the EVs were expensive in theory, interest rates were low enough that they weren't priced out of sight. And right now, with interest rates being higher, even though they came down a quarter point this week, it's they're still historic, or I should say, for the last 20 years, their interest rates are still quite high. Yeah. I mean, they're not saying there's anything wrong with the Lightning. One of the things too, the Ford Lightnings used are, I think, under $30,000. I think there's some pretty good deals on them used already. So
I haven't checked.
I think they took, once again, we were talking about earlier how the depreciation of some of it's a factor of that tax credit. It's a little bit cheaper. I would, if you're going to get, well, they're not going to be below $25,000, but still there.
Here's an interesting thing. There's an article I posted on the site this morning where Mark Tappering, who was one of the original founders or co-founders of Tesla, has invested in Telos, which is the manufacturer of that little short urban pickup truck. Take a look at the photo of this thing. Where is it? Now I got to find it myself. There it is, right there. Over on electric, it said shows you the difference between it and a I don't know, looks like a Dodge it's a Tacoma. Look at the difference between those two trucks. I mean, it's just phenomenal.
What's the name of what would I search for in the feed?
Okay, if you just go down to, let me see, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stories in the RS feed. 5 stories down.
Oh, got it. Okay, the Tello. Oh, got it.
Yeah.
Um,
And,
oh,
and look at the difference in those two vehicles. Unbelievable.
yeah, that's interesting. Not having a nose on the truck. I mean, this
No,
thing
it is. It is. There
looks
you
like you'd
go.
stick this in a closet.
Yeah, nearly.
I mean,
And the size of the bed is about the same as on that Tacoma.
yeah, it's probably a foot shorter.
Yeah.
Still, it's so that's a Tacoma in the
Uh-huh. Yeah.
yes, that's a mid-sized truck, and this is a damn tiny truck. Um,
But it's still
oh,
four door. You know, well, you don't you can stick your feet out the front end, it looks like.
yeah, so it's got some cool things. Seating
Yeah.
for 5 adults, a 5-foot bed that extends to 8 feet when you fold down the back
Tailgate.
seat.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. It'll fit plywood flat on the floor, not over the wheel wells. Hmm. All-wheel drive, 300 and up to 350 miles of range. The base price of 41,000 has a 260-mile range. Yeah, that's pretty neat little truck. I'm sure they'll
Uh-huh.
see sales. Um, but
Yeah. So
well, I
Hertz is
haven't.
almost. Go ahead.
Well, I hadn't looked at Hertz to see what they're doing on used. I didn't even know they had
Yeah, I didn't either.
EV
Thanks,
trucks at
Owen.
Hertz.
Oh,
Um,
I'm sorry.
that's Bobby.
That's Bobby. Yeah, I can never. Yeah. Hi, Bobby.
Um, yeah, we got Owen and Oasis, and that's a little yeah. For those of us with bad eyesight, it's pretty easy to get those mixed up in the feed. Yeah. Um, but going back to what Peter Rawlinson from Lucid was saying, um, he said that they have no plans to make a electric pickup truck. He said it's very tough to make an electric pickup truck work today, not one that's usable and cost effective. Most of Lucid's rivals have tried and are mostly failing. Well, the thing is, Lucid started out with a car that really didn't do that
Right.
well.
Right.
Okay, not saying it's not a great car. It's just they entered into a niche that might have been listed a little too much. And Peter Rawlinson isn't the popular media figure that Elon Musk is. You know, Elon's been able to do an awful lot of Tesla sales without doing a whole lot of advertising. That's one of the things that's been really unique about Tesla is that it's
Yeah.
not really been like
They've got
running Super Bowl ads or stuff like that.
they've got their music man. I'm going to liken him. He's not really an inventor. I mean, he's a pretty smart guy, obviously, but he's
Mhm.
more a music man
Mhm.
than a engineering genius.
Mhm. Well, the fact that they got to have the world's best-selling car without running ads is pretty phenomenal.
That's what I said. The music
Yeah.
man.
Yep. Um,
He picked great people, no doubt about it. You
yeah.
know, having von Holzen or whatever his name is, I can never remember. I'm sorry, folks. But having him design the car, and the people he picked to work on the SpaceX program and things. I mean, he picks good people, no doubt about it.
Mhm. Yeah, it definitely is like the K trucks. Um, yeah, that's something I was questioning in my head, Dylan, was because the
Mm-hmm.
Maverick starts out at right about 29,000 for a 29,000 for a hybrid pickup truck that looks pretty normal, versus a smaller truck for 40,000. And we know that Ford is planning to come out with a $30,000 EV truck that's going to be four-door as well. It's tough.
It's
It's going to be a
so
tough
so
market.
maybe that is not the market. Then we got Slate, right?
Yeah.
We still
One of
have.
the well, you remember we ran that article and talked about with Slate. Would you rather buy a Slate truck or a used Ford Lightning for the same price?
Yeah.
And that's a tough argument because you're getting so much more truck with the Ford. Um, and you don't have to worry about all of the little having to add everything to it. But for a lot of people, that's the joy of the Slate, is the
Yeah.
customizability of it. So
I
they're
guess
going a
I guess we
different
will
way.
see moving forward. And of course,
Yeah.
all kinds of who else? There's a bunch of Asian manufacturers. Or BYD, I think, is introducing a pickup truck. Of course, we won't.
Well, they have
I
the
don't.
Shark already.
Yeah,
They have the
but
BYD Shark because there's been pictures of them driving around in California and in Arizona with Mexican plates.
okay. So people are buying them down in Mexico and bringing them up. Then I
Yeah.
gather. So okay.
Yeah. So, um, yeah. So they're not technically, being brought in the U.S., but people are driving around for a while in the States. Um, I'm looking here at the stock scroll by.
I see
Lucid's
my
up to
Rivian's up.
$23. Rivian at $15. Yeah, didn't you buy into it at 10?
Yeah, it was 10, a little over 10. Yes.
Yeah, that's nice. That's nice. 50% gains since
Yeah,
then.
I should have spent a lot more, bought a lot more stock at that price, but it's I can take my wife out to dinner on it, I guess.
We have New Scale on here. The one that I've been following that's really just gone out of sight is Oklo. Holy cow. Oklo's up 330% this
Now,
year.
who is Oklo?
It's another SMR nuclear
Oh, really?
company. Yeah.
What's their
Let's
magic sauce?
Well, for starters, Scott Bessent, the Secretary of Energy, is on their board,
Oh, well.
and Sam Altman is their main investor.
Yeah, well.
So they got some good ins in some different places to
Yeah,
get something
no
done.
kidding.
Oklo's not on our ticker thing, but I've been tracking a lot of the nuclear stocks, and I mean, you look even at Tesla; they've gone from 220 to 420 here in the last few months.
Yeah.
So they've really been skyrocketing, despite the bashing they may get. Hey, all of the vandalism to the Tesla seems to have stopped at least.
Well, he has pulled back obviously on other than this thing they did at the Charlie Kirk Memorial, where he sat in the box next to Trump, but other than
Well,
that, he's kept generally politically, he's kept a fairly low profile.
yeah, I haven't watched anything about the service yet, or read any news on it. I know it occurred, but I haven't
Yeah,
had a
I'm the
chance
same
to look at
way.
anything.
I'm not really that into that. So,
Yeah. But in 2019, Musk had announced the cheapest version of the Cybertruck would start under 40K. And in reality, it's retailed for about 70.
yeah.
I really wonder, he's brought the cost down on so many other of his vehicles so much that at some point will the Cybertruck come down dramatically.
Yeah. I
Um,
don't know. The thing about the Cybertruck is it was so unconventional in the materials that it used that it had to have special equipment,
mhm.
developed to be able to, work with stainless steel. And I suppose he probably could tap into some of the expertise that he developed with, the SpaceX, technology and the Starship and so on. But still, that there was no relatively off the shelf machinery to do what he needed to be done to build the Cybertruck.
Let's see. So there's apparently an idea of a more base Model Y coming out
Yeah.
to be even
Yes.
less expensive.
Yes.
Two
And as
additional,
one guy put it, it is really bare.
yeah. So the simplified model,
Simplified.
um,
Okay.
it'll have two audio options: essential and essential with commodity. Backup camera would lose a heater, no airwave in console, and it'd have a different fascia, but it'd get an update. Um, it's been introduced in firmware updates featuring a substantial downgrade in features that goes beyond cloth seats and lower cost materials. Here's all the omissions or omissions: a simplified fiberglass headliner, simplified cabin lighting, simplified seat controls, single axis, no power mirror folding, no puddle lamps, no glass roof. Now that's one that I think some people probably could have done without.
Yeah, I don't have one in mine. I
Yeah.
don't, I mean, I enjoy it in my Fiat. I love that the sunroof to put that back, and when the weather's nice. But
Mm-hmm.
in my Bolt, I don't miss it.
Yep, no second row display, no tire pressure monitoring system, simplified 18-inch wheels, and a downgraded suspension. They'll have a slightly different look. Still, and let's see. It doesn't say what the range would be, but I bet it's still over 300 miles. But
Yeah,
I guess
that's
the idea
almost
is
a
to make
must
it,
anymore.
yeah.
I
Um,
assume it'll probably be lithium, iron phosphate batteries
mhm.
or ferrous phosphate. So,
Yeah, I'm sure it will. All right, let's switch over from cars to aviation. Then we'll go to boats.
all right.
All right. So this isn't a bad looking little plane, although I don't know if I'm going to fit in this one. Um, let's see what we got here. The Bristol B-23 Energic electric aircraft. I thought it might be energetic, but it's just energic.
Yeah.
Anyways, unless that guy is super tall, maybe that guy's 6'8" or something like that. And then,
No, I don't. I don't think so.
um, you know, that's the one thing. Aircraft are always a little private aircraft are always a little cramped for a big guy like me. But this is interesting. It's an all-electric trainer aircraft. Now, by trainer, I assume that means it's going to have space for
Yeah,
two people, though.
it's side by side. It's a lot like the Pipistrel. Only the
Okay.
Pipistrel, of course, is a high wing, and this is more a low wing, sort of
Mhm.
beach type of aircraft.
60-minute flight time, but
Which
operating
is,
costs of $8 to $9 per hour. That is getting cheap.
oh my
That is
God, yeah,
that
yep.
is really getting cheap, but only a 60-minute flight time. FAA limits U.S. flights to 40 minutes due to stricter reserves, but upgrades are planned. Despite reduced payload from battery weight, performance rivals piston aircraft. Its success signals growing momentum in electric aviation. That was all the info we really had on that, but still, it's pretty cool to see that. Some of the arguments we've had on, like when we did the Pipistrel, was that people aren't getting all of their flight check stuff in that they'd have to have on their gas powered planes because it doesn't have all
Right.
the stuff to check.
It's a completely different checklist. Yep.
Yeah,
So,
and
actually, simplified checklist, but still a difference from what they are going to experience when they move on to, more conventional aircraft. They're going to have to do a serious check ride in a 172 or whatever they're upgrading to. These are great to get people started. Low operating cost. You're going to be doing mostly pattern work anyway, so you learn how to take off, you learn how to land, you'll know how to taxi, you know how to involve yourself with air traffic control in the tower and all those things you have to know. This is perfect for that because it can be done at a relatively low cost. Of course, if you want to do serious cross country work, that's another subject. You're going to have to wait till the batteries catch up, or just simply, move on to whatever piston power aircraft or turbine power aircraft you have available to you.
yeah, so this plane is about $430,000 to start
Yeah,
with.
yeah, it's a pretty expensive, but then they all are. You take the look. I was watching. There's a couple of channels I like to watch. One of them is Repair Rescue or something like that. It's a guy out of Pennsylvania who goes and basically buys abandoned airplanes, and he
Mhm.
found this van RV6, I think it was, that
Mhm.
had been down in North Carolina, and it had been flooded. So imagine you're sitting in the cockpit of this airplane, and you're up to here if you were sitting in floodwaters. I mean, you can look at the instruments, and the instruments have the floodwater lines across the panel, right? So mainly everything, from about the center line of the engine down to the ground was underwater. Now, fortunately, because North Carolina, I'm guessing that was freshwater as opposed to Florida, where it'd be saltwater. So he was able to. He was talking about he was up one night. He couldn't sleep. He was scrolling, looking for things that he might be able to buy for his program, because this is what he does. That's his living, is finding these aircraft and rescuing them for his YouTube channel. So he said, I bid on it, but then I forgot about it. And a few weeks later, I get notification, you've won, the bid on this aircraft. So he has to, lay out 12 grand for this thing. But as he points out, a really well done, and this is an experimental class. This is not a certified aircraft. This is experimental, consumer built. Much of it, at least 51% of it, has to be consumer built. The rest of it could have factory input. That he said that airplane, he showed a picture of one, $107,000. $107,000 for a plane that's virtually identical to the one you just showed us. The only difference being is it got a piston, a Lycoming 320 or whatever it is, up front, as opposed to an electric motor. $107,000. So yeah, these things they're not in it. When you're talking airplane, you're talking lots of money.
Oh yeah, no question. It was interesting. There's a real estate guy now who's teaching people how to make a living investing in abandoned aircraft. And basically going to different private airports and contacting all the owners of all the planes that are obviously in disrepair, just sitting
right
there.
Yep.
Yeah. And
he's kind of picking up on what the guy at the rescue program does.
Very, very similar. All right, let's we're on aviation, right? Let's switch to Regent. So Regent. Now, did Regent acquire Sea Glider, or are they the same company?
That's the name of Regent is the company. Sea Glider is what the aircraft is.
Okay, so we previously discussed Sea Glider. I guess I just don't remember it being called Regent. And
that's the name of the company. They're based in Rhode Island, I think. Yeah, this is a scaled working prototype of the aircraft.
Now
Go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say this has 12 motors on the front.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah. All electric motors.
Yeah, all electric motors. So, anyways, it does. This is what do you describe? They don't go more than about 50 feet above the water.
Right? They do not. Yeah, this is it's a flies in ground effect. So as long as you are within one wingspan, so look at that wing and do this, that's how high it'll fly. So whatever the wingspan on an aircraft is, it generally will not fly above that. It's enough to be out of the waves, but it's within the effect of the weight of air that is being moved and so on around the aircraft. It's able to stay within that, which means it can have less power required to keep it airborne.
Yeah, so it's being contracted to start flying between various Scottish islands.
Yeah, the Orkneys.
And yes, and should be functional somewhere in 26 and 27 with a 12-passenger Sea Glider.
Yep.
And designed for coastal regions. They float like a boat, raised onto hydrofoils, who can take off using the flight and ground effect. An aircraft flying very close to surface experiences extra lift and reduced drag because of the way air flows under its wings.
Yeah. Well, the Russians experimented with this. They've been, back, I think in the 50s, they had, versions of this technology. I assume mainly to get people around, the Crimean Peninsula and the Sea of Azov, and places like that. It wasn't really particularly. I mean, it was innovative. I don't think it was all that economic, because back then, of course, you were still using piston, or they had one version that was all jet powered.
Wow, Regent has $10 billion worth of pre-orders for the Sea Gliders.
Uh-huh.
Wow. That's
Speaking of Fred, we were mentioning Lucid. Lucid supposedly is their new Gravity SUV is sold out.
Wow. How many pre-orders was that?
Something like 10,000, I think, some number like that.
That's that seems low. I mean, compared to some of the other.
Well, no, they're a low volume producer, obviously.
Yeah. Let's see if I can find anything. Because I'm kind of curious. Gravity.
Yeah, the Lucid Gravity SUV looks sold out just a day after inventory was listed online.
Oh, okay.
So if you search for Lucid, and it's the second item down.
Well, they've never manufactured a whole lot of cars.
No, that's my point.
So 10,000 might be the number. Still, that's a big number for them, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so we'll see. I've always wanted to see Lucid do well, and hopefully they will. It's just a matter. I mean, they're coming into a tight space. Chevy's actually producing several nice SUV EVs, and under the Chevy banner, under the Cadillac banner. I keep hearing lyrics all the time now.
Yep.
And far more than I used to. And I mean, obviously they're making high-end vehicles.
The article I linked to does not specify how many that is. So I assume they're keeping that close to the breast at the moment.
Yeah. Dylan, the comment on you'd rather learn everything in a 152, but a lot of aviation is just getting hours. And you think about how expensive it is to rent an aircraft and everything, and if you're able to get that operating cost below $10 an hour, obviously the flight school is going to make money on it, but you're not going to be paying the same kind of money you would be for flying a gas aircraft. I mean, because so much of learning to fly is just learning to operate the navigation and listening to the radio and talking to the control people
and responding. I mean, that's all. I mean, I've been there. I've done that. I have a private certificate. But then that was before I was even dreaming of things electric. So But
I'm not a. Yeah, I was gonna say I'm not a pilot, but I've flown, and I've flown aircraft, with pilots, and been in enough private planes, that I realize where the challenge is. It's not really taking off. I think about so much of it being taken off and landing, but like my last trip, we took off and he hit the autopilot, and we put up sunshades. We put up sunscreens all around the vehicle.
Yeah.
So we really weren't even looking out. We were like on our.
You were in a Sirius, right?
Yeah.
So Sirius.
And he's doing stuff on an iPad. I'm doing stuff on my phone.
Mm-hmm.
We had Wi-Fi in there, and so we had like satellite Wi-Fi and all that. So I mean, it was just.
But so much of it now is is just simply the communication that has to take place between you and air traffic control. That that's as much a part of the train. Of course, then you got to do you have to learn how to navigate and do cross country. Even with that now, we've got, you can take an iPad and put the appropriate, software on it, and you can, fly anywhere in the world if you want. I don't have to. I mean, I've got back in my flight bag, I've got, the compass and the track, all the paraphernalia, that you had to have back in the day, in the 60s and 70s to be before we got all this fancy, microelectronics. Now, these guys can, I flew a Piper in the 80s, a VW with wings. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
I was just looking for my flight computer watch, that has
right.
all the controllers, so you can do all your math on the watch. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
But yeah.
Now it's just punch buttons. Does it all for you.
Well, my friend's Cirrus SR22, it's I think it's like a 2001 or 2004 model or something like that. It might have been 2004. And to upgrade all of the navigation equipment to the most recent is in the hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Oh yeah.
But he's got his iPad, and it's like there's no place really to set anything.
The electronics in the airplane is as much as the airframe and engine anymore.
Yeah, or more. Yeah. It's the real cost, but he can do all of it on his iPad.
On an iPad now. Yeah.
Yeah, and so he was constantly, laying everything out on the iPad, and it was just a different experience. I was kind of laughing at that because his aircraft, if you went to buy one new, it's like $1.25 million.
Oh yeah.
And but I was looking at used ones, and
even the used ones are
the cheapest used ones are at least $250,000. Yeah, and I've got somebody who's wanting to buy one for running some charter service in a certain part of the country. And it just happens to be, we're looking, he's looking for the same aircraft essentially, but maybe a little newer.
Yeah.
But still, because that aircraft has a lot of cool features, mainly being the safety features.
Well, it's got the deployable parachute, which by the way, actually got deployed, a couple of weeks ago over Lake Michigan.
Really?
Yeah. These guys were left from, I forget the airport, but it's in the Chicago area. And they were headed to across the lake over into Michigan. They may be, I don't know, Detroit or Lansing or somewhere they were going. And they got up, and they were maybe 40 miles offshore, and they lost the engine.
And they couldn't glide all the way back in.
And so they had to, the air traffic control was, tried to swell. Your nearest point is, they had them pointed in direction, the closest possible airport. They didn't make it. They couldn't make it. So they had to deploy the chute and dropped them down into the water, and they were able to get out. And I guess they fortunately had life vests or something. They were able to get the Coast Guard there to rescue them with the help of another private aircraft that ATC diverted to them to circle above them because the aircraft sank. That's got those big hatch, doors on the thing. And that won't float indefinitely.
No.
And of course, then eventually sank. So maybe you can get somebody to recover that. There's your airplane.
Yeah. Some fresh water, right?
Yeah. So these guys were saved by that ballistic parachute that comes in. I don't know if it comes in all of the Cirruses, but at least this particular one had the ballistic chute.
Yeah, I'm under the impression that they all have it.
Yeah.
They don't. I don't know if they have a whole lot of models of aircraft. The SR-22 is the only Cirrus I've ever seen, and when I'm at airports, I see them frequently, but I'm used to looking for them. Right? It's like owning a Jeep. If you own a Jeep, you see Jeeps everywhere.
Everywhere, yeah.
And it's kind of that way. But Sea Glider's planning on making a 50 to 100 passenger aircraft to launch in 2030. That's, I don't know that, you start looking at aircraft and, ferrying people and short distances. Because I've seen some little small commuter airlines that struggled to get more than 1 to 3 passengers between various,
Right.
like between Kansas City and say like Harrison, Arkansas, or Kansas City going to Memphis.
Yeah.
Um, and this was I used to fly a small, it was a single engine Cessna with 2 pilots and 10 passengers. I don't remember what model Cessna it was, but it was something the military.
Probably a caravan.
I think that's it. I think
Yeah, it's
that's
probably the
it.
caravan. That's the one that's typically used. Yeah.
Yeah, and it took less, including the landing in Harrison, Arkansas. Maybe it was Harrisonville. It's one of those. Anyways, to get to Memphis, it took less than 3 hours. It was faster to drive from Omaha to the charter terminal at Kansas City and fly to Memphis than I could fly from here, because there's no direct flight from here to Memphis.
Right. So yeah, from
And
here you have to go to Dallas, you have to go to St. Louis, or wherever, and
yeah,
then connect, and then yeah.
including my drive, leaving the house, being there 30 minutes early for the flight, and then getting right to my rental car at there at the airport. It was about 6 hours versus 8.5 hours on a commercial flight. So I was saving 2 hours and half the price. And then on top of that, even driving was less than 10 hours. So even driving didn't take a lot longer than flying commercially. But anyways, this is fascinating though, what sea glider, because we reported on a sea glider before. It's interesting.
Yeah.
It doesn't fly very high. It's not really true aviation, but you probably have to be certified both as a boat captain and a pilot, I'm assuming.
That probably will be the case. Yeah. Yeah. This is what's so fascinating, is that well, we've had flying boats before. The flying boats go back to Glenn Curtis was doing that. So it's nothing new, but getting the regulations to jibe with with the EV tolls. Is it an airplane?
Mhm.
Is it a helicopter? What is it? Right? Well, it's kind of both. And the same thing with the sea glider. In ground effect, is it a boat? Do you have to have a marine license, but also a
Right.
pilot's license to fly it? It's
Yeah.
fascinating questions. Yes.
Yeah. It will be interesting to see. Okay, let's get on to in just 15 years, no one will own an electric car. Here's what will replace them instead. And I don't really agree with this. This guy's argument is that car ownership as we know it is disappearing. A growing and younger people are less likely to own a car.
Now, this is
They're more
true.
likely to catch rides. So that there is some truth to that.
Yep.
But could
I don't think 15 years is a
realistic number?
realistic. No, I don't think so.
No.
But I think eventually, because I'll tell you why I say that. Because I'm seeing more and more around my little neighborhood here. I'm seeing more and more people on e-bikes and people on the electric kick scooters. I see kids going to school now, or coming home from school. That's what they're riding. So I keep thinking, well, you get this kid into his teenage years, what's he going to do? Well, in fact, there was a little kid running around yesterday on one of our paths here on a little tiny miniature electric motorcycle. And so I'm thinking, as these kids get older, they've already had this experience with electric transportation, be it this little toy like my neighbor just up here, with his kids have their little pink electric Cadillac,
Jeeps.
right? Or Jeep, or whatever it is. And then this kid running around with his electric, little electric motorcycle on the sidewalk. And then one of the neighbors down here, an adult teenager, I think that kid's gone through at least 5 or 6 e-bikes. And he keeps upgrading to more and more powerful, bikes. And then I see adults running around, on those electric kick scooters. So I think that in some respects, we get into the 2040s, the 2050s, and so on, long after I'm gone, obviously. um, that there will be less of a need. Hopefully we'll have the autonomous thing worked out. Supposedly Nissan, by the way, is contracted with a company with an autonomous system that is claimed is better than Tesla's, which isn't saying much.
No, I get it.
you
I
know
get it.
so but that this is the direction we're going. And why should I'm hoping that this thing will get far enough along so that when I have to hand over the fob to my daughter or whatever, and they don't let me drive a car anymore, I'll have some kind of a alternative to turn to like this to get around.
Yeah, I'm sure, good full self-driving will be a regular thing in a few years. So it's starting to be more and more common. But even these ideas of being cheaper versions of Uber and Lyft and things like that, and Tuber, um, that they can, pick you up and give you a ride, and you don't need to own a car, and it'd be cheaper than what those trips currently are, could make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
If you start getting it where it's, especially, the vehicle has no driver, it's just going and picking people up. I think there's some arguments for that. It certainly would be easier on roads. It'd be easier on the environment, and then be a lot easier on parking. Then people aren't dealing so much with parking all the time.
Yep.
And that takes a lot of factors.
Yeah, interestingly, there's one of the complaints about a new apartment complex down in sort of the central part of Omaha that's going in, is that the neighbors are complaining there's not enough parking, so they're gonna park all their vehicles on the street, right? And that's just gonna be a congestion problem, and where are we gonna park? Because this is an older neighborhood where you're lucky if you've got a
driveway,
driveway and attached garage. But that may be that's you go to California, and that's the future. They've basically, you don't have to have so many people, so many parking spots, kind of regulations. They're wanting to discourage people from owning multiple vehicles.
Yeah, that's really a problem. And I get asked questions all the time by people about the viability of owning an EV when living in a high-rise apartment building like in New York City. It's like, well, that's challenging. I mean, the real benefit is having your own fueling method, your own fueling location.
Well, yeah, but there's just the space. I assume in all your travels, I've parked in downtown Manhattan, right? And there are parking garages and things like that. But boy, is it expensive, right? And that's only just for a couple of hours, to do dinner with a friend downtown. It's expensive. And having a vehicle, and some of these parking spots and some of the apartments are as much as you pay for the apartment.
Yeah, it's just crazy.
So why do you want it? Why when you can just simply, there's a subway, for better or worse. There's taxis everywhere, and of course now you've got Uber and Uber and Lyft and all these other kinds of things that are happening. So yeah, it's changing, it's evolving, and I can see a point in time where owning a car is more a liability than it is an advantage.
Yeah. Well, anyways, let me see. And just lastly, I want to talk about the Honda Prologue. So Honda has a plan to beat the EV tax credits demise. So the EV tax credits go away in a little over a week. So it's like next Wednesday is like the last day, or next Tuesday, something like that. Let's see. So the Honda Prologue and its premium version, the Acura ZDX, have been selling extremely well, to the point where both electric SUVs have outsold their GM counterparts so far this year. As of the first half of the year, Honda sold 16,300 Prologues, and 12,700 of the Acuras
Wow.
during the same period. That momentum, so that's 28, they're at 29,000 of them, for the first half of the year. And their plan, they're going to heavily discount the Prologue for the 26 model year. Upcoming discounts surfaced through dealer bulletins even before the pricing for the next model year was revealed. They're quite generous. The outgoing deals are still better, but at least prospective buyers won't catch the EV tax credits from the next few days, won't have to deal with full pricing. They're talking up to $9,000 in savings. There are two conditions. Buyers should avail themselves of the EV through Honda Financial Services to receive a $6,000 lease or finance rebate, a promotion that's valid until November 3rd. The additional $3,000 can be Conquest cash moving from another, or a loyalty discount. So either you're coming from another company or it's from another Honda lease.
Right.
So easy to qualify for.
Yeah.
But they currently have $17,000 available in discounts on 25 models. And in California, Colorado, or Connecticut, it could be up to $20,500. So there's some pretty big incentives.
Yeah.
And the current offer includes 0% financing for 72 months, plus the $9,500 in financing bonuses, which are stackable with the $7,500 tax credit. So once again, that tax credit, it ends on Tuesday next week.
Yeah.
Still, that's some crazy discounts on a car.
Though my understanding is the IRS made an extension or something like that. So I'm guessing that if you have ordered the vehicle,
by
you may not have taken the delivery quite yet, you can still qualify.
Yeah. It's once again, we started out talking a little bit about depreciation, right? So there's a perfect example. If you've got a $50,000 EV with, it's probably a little more than that. Let's say it's 60,000, but you got $20,000 in deductions. Well, right there, that's technically a 1/3 depreciation. You really don't have a $60,000 car. You have a $40,000 car. Right. And that's making it really competitive. All right. Well, Bill, we managed to cover a whole hour today.
Yeah.
So, anyways, I want to thank you guys for chiming in. We love getting people chatting.
Yep.
It
Thanks,
makes it
guys.
a little more interesting for us. And anyways, I'll be back with Mike and Bill. We will be on for Friday this week.
Okay, good.
Yeah, so I'll be around. Anyways, otherwise, folks, have a great day.